Now, the Right Honourable Kingsford Alban Bagbin, the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament, had descended on President Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, for his comments on the recent Supreme Court ruling giving the Deputy Speakers the right to vote whilst presiding. In a statement on the official Facebook page of the Parliament of Ghana, the Speaker, whilst describing the judgment as a reckless intrusion into the remit of Parliament, described the President's comment as myopic and unfortunate. Samuel Kojo joins me live on Zoom with details of this. We are now getting to read for the first time what really went into the decision of the Supreme Court. At the heart of the decision by the Supreme Court declaring that the Deputy Speakers have the right to vote. But Brace, what more can you tell us about what the Speaker has been saying on Facebook?
Well, thank you very much. The Speaker says that he resisted temptations to speak on this matter when the judgment was delivered, but he's been brought into the fray to speak because of what the President has been saying. Now, he has used two words to describe what the President said. He said the President's statement is simply myopic and an unfortunate one. Now, to quote him, he says the Supreme Court decision is, to say the least, not only an absurdity, but a reckless incursion into the remit of Parliament. The trend of unanimity is equally troubling. It doesn't help explore and expand our legal jurisprudence. The President's comment is myopic and unfortunate. It only goes to worsen the schism between the executive and Parliament. The impartiality of the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, or presiding officer has been treasured and fought for by this country throughout our democratic development. Mr. President, the issue being discussed is not about Parliament being above the law. Everyone knows that Parliament is not above the law. The executive and judiciary are equally not above the law. The issue being discussed is the political question doctrine. It took centuries to detail out the strands of this doctrine, and the principles are settled as to when and how this closed book could be opened. Please, I encourage the plaintiff to go for a review. Signed, Right Honourable Alban Bagbin, Speaker, 8th Parliament.
Thank you for giving us the latest on that. We are now getting to read for the first time what really went into the decision of the Supreme Court. At the heart of the decision by the Supreme Court declaring that Deputy Speakers have the right to vote is that the standing orders of Parliament are subservient to the Constitution, and any law contrary to the Constitution is void. My colleague Kweku Asante has gone through the 29-page judgment of the court and joins me now on Zoom with details. Kweku, what does the court say about the political question doctrine and why they thought their jurisdiction was properly triggered?
All right, so this judgment written by Yoni Kolendi, who was part of the 7-member panel who had the case, starts by actually quoting a judgment by a previous Supreme Court. And let me quote, it says, where it is alleged before the Supreme Court that any organ of government or an institution is acting in violation of a provision of this Constitution, the Supreme Court is duty bound by Articles 2:1 and 131 to exercise jurisdiction. And so the Supreme Court starts by laying down the foundation, for which reason it thought it could actually look at this. Because you just heard there from Brace what the Speaker said, actually saying that the political question doctrine should have prevented the Supreme Court from pronouncing on this matter. But the court clearly states that whenever an arm of government or any other institution of state is said to have contravened the specifics of the 1992 Constitution, then the court can come in and make a determination. And so this is the basis upon which the court starts by saying that the standing orders, as well as any other law that may be inconsistent with the 1992 Constitution, is void. And so this is the starting point of this judgment of the court.
Now, the court talks about supremacy of the Constitution over the supremacy of Parliament.
All right, so what the court proceeded to do was to say that people may claim Parliament may have a certain level of supremacy, for which reason they may be questioned. And it quotes what happens in the British Parliament, for instance, where if you go to the United Kingdom, the British Parliament is said to be the supreme state or the supreme law of the land. And so whatever they may do is not even subject of question in the court. The court quotes directly and says that the supremacy of the constitution in this country and by the laws that we practice in this country is what is paramount. And so cannot claim that the specifics of the things they do in parliament is not subject to any question. And so Johnny Kulendi writes quite eruditely by claiming that the Constitution of Ghana makes it an imperative for the Supreme Court to pronounce on such matters by stating that our laws and every other rules and regulation that may be enforced in any place that is not in accordance with the Supreme Court, in accordance with the Constitution of the party, will be struck out. And so we know that in this judgment, they actually struck out portions of the standing orders of Parliament, and that is what Johnny Kulendi spells out in this 20 of the court.
Now, what did the court say about forming the quorum in the House?
Okay, so the court goes to make a distinction between quorum for business, quorum for voting. So it states first that the quorum for doing business, any ordinary business of the House, as spelled out by the Constitution, is 2/3 of members. But where that is 2/3 of members apart from the person presiding. And so for those who may be minded to look at that part of the law may say that, well, then the deputy speaker who may be presiding at the time, if he cannot be counted for the purposes of quorum, then cannot vote. The court says there's a clear distinction between quorum and ordinary business of Parliament. Say they are having a debate about what may have happened in the Piatti or anything. That is 2/3 and 1/3. But the court goes on to lay emphasis on quorum needed to vote in the House, which says is at least half of MPs present. And the court goes on to make the point that the first deputy speaker should be part of this. And so the speaker, the deputy speaker, or whoever may be presiding, because they are members of Parliament whose constituents put them there to do business on their behalf, cannot be simply said that when he is presided cannot vote. And so the court goes on to lay emphasis on that to say that these are the people of Bekwai in this particular instance, whose MP is Joseph Osewusu, who at the time was sitting in the chair, needed representation and had to vote on the specific matter. And so the court made that distinction between quorum for doing business, any ordinary business, and the quorum for voting, and concluded by saying that the first deputy speaker or the second deputy speaker or any other person for that matter can be counted as part of MPs needed to form the quorum that will lead to the House making a decision on a vote, for instance, and in this particular case, the 2022 budget approval that took place. And so the court made that decision over there.
Okay. What reasons did the court adduce to support their ruling that the deputy speakers can vote? So the court lays out a number of parameters. It talks about the supremacy of the Constitution. It also talks about schemes that have been decided in the past. Martin Amidu versus President Kufuor and the Attorney General in 2002, and quotes copiously why they think that the specific ground norms and the rules and regulations of Parliament might have been stated in the standing orders. And we know that in the standing orders, order 1093, which has been struck out by the Constitution, the deputy speaker only does not have that power to vote. And so it goes on to lay that. Let me read for instance. It says that where it is alleged that where it is alleged before the Supreme Court that any organ of government or an institution is acting in violation of the provision of the Constitution, the Supreme Court is duty bound by Articles 21, 131 to exercise jurisdiction unless the Constitution has provided a specific remedy like those of Articles 33 and 99 with dealing with that particular violation. And actually, if you read this judgment of the court, it seemed as though they were responding directly to the concerns that had been raised by the Speaker of Parliament by calling the judgment the kind of term that the Speaker of Parliament used to describe the judgment. But it goes on to clearly spell out the provisions under which the court, the 7-member court that would unanimously believe that the
first and second deputy speakers, or any other person for that matter, presiding over the House, can vote. Bless it.
Okay, now the court ended by doing a comparative analysis between Ghana and other countries.
Right. So the court goes on to say that there's a clear distinction between some states and some versions of parliament elsewhere where the Speaker of Parliament can vote or cannot vote. We know that in the British Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament is elected from among members of Parliament and does not have to resign his or her seat. He has to be in the seat and continue to do business, but only has casting vote in case there's a tie. It goes on to say that in the United States, the House of Representatives, an elected member of House, unlike the Speaker in Westminster, is a leader of the majority party of the House. And so if you go to the US Congress, the Speaker of Parliament is analogous to the majority leader. And so he is a majority leader and at the same time the Speaker of the House and can still cast his vote. And so it goes on, lists a myriad of parliaments from across the world. It goes to Canada, the Australian, and other cases where speakers of parliament and their deputies or whoever may be presented can't vote or do not vote. And so it's a 29-page document where the Supreme Court clearly listing out the reasons why it came to the conclusions it did, and we have fully analyzed this judgment on my platform for those who may want to read the full text for themselves. And so that judgment is there on myjoyonline.com for anyone interested to have a read.
Kwaku Asante, I'm grateful.